Get up. Good afternoon. Hello to everybody, no matter what your time zone is. We're H&D Abroad. I'm Herman.
And I'm Dee. Welcome to a really special presentation where we're talking about long-term care. This is your opportunity to get a one-on-one 101 on an important topic that should be on your checklist if you're considering moving abroad and have family that you may be leaving behind here in the United States or in your home country. But before we begin, we should introduce ourselves. So
again, I'm Herman, and we are at H&D Abroad. On this channel, we help Black couples see moving abroad as a plan A by sharing our personal journey in real time.
Absolutely.
We want to help those couples improve with a healthy lifestyle and increase generational wealth.
Yep. So if that is, if these are topics that are important to you, please like this video, share, and subscribe to our channel. Hit the notification bell because we go live a couple of times a week. So we have a really special guest with us today that's going to help us to navigate the long-term care conversation. So why don't we go ahead and bring her in? Hey, Candace.
Hi, Tanika. Hi, Herman.
Hey, how are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Hello, everybody.
All right.
Yeah, so go ahead, introduce yourself and what you do.
My name is Candace Coston. I'm a member of the Exodus Summit community, so that's how I met Herman and Danica. And I'm a licensed insurance agent specializing in long-term care and final expense life insurance. I also talk to folks about Medicare and retirement planning in general. I've been doing this since 2010, and I'm licensed in 34 states and counting. And again, my specialization is helping folks with long-term care because every time I talk to folks about this subject, folks always tell me that it's been on their mind. So I really want to do a better job of getting the word out to folks. And I appreciate you all for having me on your channel.
Absolutely. I know one of the reasons that I pulled Candace deeper into my circle is because we were talking about financial is a huge area that Black people need to address, but also how to protect those resources. And little things like anticipating that there is going to be a need, because usually there will be, for more medical assistance as you age, as your folk age, but then there are catastrophic events. And so Candace, kindly accepted our invitation to share what she knows and how she can support what we do. Her information on how to reach her outside of this conversation will be in the description. So why don't we just get started with the basics? So what is long-term care?
Okay, so long-term care is care for an extended period of time. So sometimes you may hear me call it extended care also. But long-term care is care that you can get in a traditional nursing home facility, in an assisted living facility, in an adult daycare facility, and care that you can get at home. But the key portion of long-term care, what makes it long-term care, is usually when you need care beyond 100 days. Okay, that's when you're classified as chronically ill and most likely not getting better, or you have a mental incapacity like Alzheimer's or dementia. So care in a nursing home is just how we are familiar with. You go into a brick and mortar facility and you're getting around the clock care. Care in an assisted living facility sometimes looks like a house or a structure with maybe 4 or 5 rooms, and you have a private house manager there, and you most likely are getting around the clock care there as well. There's adult daycare where If you are being cared for by a loved one and they have other responsibilities, you can go to an adult daycare facility, just like a child daycare facility, right? And then also care at home. When you're at home and you have loved ones caring for you, or you have someone from a home health care facility that comes to your home to care for you for an extended period of time.
Yeah, so you kind of touched on some of the criteria. So the 100 days is one that is definitely new to me for classifying it. But who might need long-term care? I know we have shared on this channel that Herman's mom had a severe Alzheimer's, so she needed years worth of care. But it sounds like even some long-term chronic diseases might also fall into that category as well.
So who needs long-term care? So folks with a mental incapacity. So that's going to be folks with Alzheimer's and dementia. But what's classified as needing long-term care is, okay, a chronic illness like Alzheimer's or dementia, but also when you need help with your activities of daily living. And I shorten those, call those ADLs. So when you need help from someone to eat, bathe, get dressed, get in or out of bed or in or out of the chair, which is transferring, continence, which is bowel control. And now they're adding taking your medication, or if you need like standby assistance or supervisory assistance. So that is who needs long-term care. People who need help with their activities of daily living, eating, bathing, dressing, toileting, transferring, and continence.
Yeah, I'm thinking about this because who needs long-term care because of my age. You know, I know that, you know, if we were to care for my mother or my father-in-law, I may not have the physical strength. I might actually injure myself. So having access to help can help me to not injure myself and to give some balance to providing care. If the Black family experience, don't put your mama in a home. Don't put your daddy in a home. We care for our family members at home. Is a large part of what happens in our communities. But the caregiver takes on a lot physically, financially, socially, emotionally. It can be an isolating experience. Professor LCH, you are not late to the conversation. We are getting started. If you have questions, please put them in the chat. If things are resonating with you and you're joining from the future, please put #replay, put your question there, because Candace is going to follow up even after this conversation to continue to answer questions. But this is a huge area that we don't have to do alone. And that's what I'm hoping that people hear today.
And I also want to tap into that with a part of the question to that. I know that a lot of times we think long-term care, as Dee mentioned, we tend to think age. Does that include people who are in some level of rehabilitation?
Okay, so these are great points that you have mentioned. I want to go back to the first point that Danica mentioned about anticipation. So that's the biggest part where us Black folks, we miss out, is we're not anticipating the need for the care. And when we talk about who needs the care, we just mentioned, you know, people with a mental incapacity and people need help with their activities of daily living. But what I didn't mention is the caregiver, right? So the caregiver, when, you know, you all mentioned taking care of your parents, the caregiver, you know, ends up having to change their lifestyle. Oftentimes 70% of caregivers, okay, end up having to change their lifestyle, like stopping work, taking a leave of absence, or cutting back work hours, or being less available to their children and sometimes their grandchildren as well. So who needs long-term care? The folks who need the physical care, as well as their loved ones need long-term care. Okay. And we haven't even, I'm sure we're going to get into, the effects of needing long-term care, what happens when the family can no longer provide the care, and you go into facilities, and what happens when, you feel like your loved one may not be getting the proper care, and how it spirals into, now we're talking about losing our assets that we've worked hard for. Now we need to, losing our home, right? Because we cannot pay for the care because we've not anticipated the need for care, and things like that.
Absolutely. Right now, I feel like there are two parts of the conversation. So we're talking about long-term care, and then there's long-term care insurance. So we're going to group this introductory part of long-term care and then move into the long-term care insurance kind of conversation and opportunities that exist there. So yes, keep the questions coming. Thank you, Kim, so much. You're right. I mean, this is something that a lot of people feel like they can't move abroad because, my mother or my father may need care or need care. Hearing Rick and Halisi talk about their parents being in care and the cost of it really impacted us early on in our process. So I think more people need to be thinking about it.
And also, because a part of our channel journey is the fact that we're not retirement age, we're still in working, and we're talking about moving abroad. Do we up and decide, what the prospects of, we'll get up and we'll come back to the States if we need care, where long-term care, we've seen there are great options in the move abroad process.
Yeah.
And that can be more financially beneficial and more, the care be more
Better
comprehensive. Yeah, be better care that is abroad. So in that researching, make sure you're researching not just for the people you want to care for, but in your personal care, because as you just said, Candace, people aren't preparing for it.
Right.
Or even when they are preparing for it. My father, I think, made preparations for, the health of he and my mother. What he said to me recently was, it moved faster than I realized it was moving. And there are people who have Alzheimer's for years. And my mother's moved rapidly. And he said he didn't see it because he was right there. He didn't see how fast it was going. And so it affected the financial balance of what they were doing in ways that even he didn't prepare for.
Right. So let's talk about how long do people need care. The national average for how long people need extended care or long-term care is 3 years. That's the average, right? Most people need care for a year or less. And then you have the outliers who need care for 15 years or 10 years or 6 years. So that makes the average 3 years. But most people need care for an extended period of time for less than 1 year. However, that can be very detrimental to your assets and what you've really worked hard for, because, if you go to Longtermcare.gov, all the sites, if you look all over national websites about long-term care, long-term care can cost upwards of $100,000 a year. That's in a nursing home facility. And, even care at home, can cost somewhere around, $60,000 to $70,000 a year. Care in an assisted living facility, an adult daycare facility can cost $70,000, $80,000 a year, right? And that is when we actually get a chance to choose where we get the care. There are times when we don't get to choose where we get the care because we've not planned for it, right? So oftentimes when we hear, mom and dad, they're in a nursing home, that, they're not taking good care of mom and dad. Well, that's what happens when the state is now dictating your care, right? When Medicare doesn't cover the care, your assets have run out, your health insurance doesn't cover long-term care, and now the state is dictating your care. They're taking all of your assets, oftentimes your Social Security check, to pay for that care, right? So they're in charge of that care. But yeah, care in a nursing home can cost upwards of $100,000 a year, $200 and $300 a day.
Mm-hmm.
And, I just want everybody to think about what type of effect that would have on their assets.
This discussion, you just brought up an important point, that you want to have the option to choose your care, but you may not. Professor LCH that we just had on the screen was talking about, you've also got to consider even the who needs care. Sometimes you're looking into a situation saying, I can't provide the care that my parents need, but what if they don't feel like they need it? If yes, they can still drive themselves to the doctor, or that, hey, I'm eating well, when that they're not. So there are a lot of pushes and pulls in the conversation that we're having, that we want to be aware. We can make a plan, but what we want is a plan that embraces dignity, a plan that is not just for the long-term care, but really is considering all of the long-term implications of being a caregiver.
Yes. So real quick to touch on the who needs care. So I just want everyone to know that 70% of people above age 65 need some type of long-term care in their life. That's 70%. Wow. Now, like I said, most people who need the care are going to need the care for 3 years or less. But not everyone who needs care is elderly. 40% of people who need care are under age 65. So we can't confuse, being ill or being sick with needing care for an extended period of time.
Right.
And so when we talk about the effects of long-term care, not only have we just mentioned the effects that it has on our family members, the caregivers of our family members, but the emotional effects of both. If I'm caring for my mother, right, the emotional effects that it has on me, seeing my mother in that state, the physical effects that it has on me, but also the emotional effects that it has on my mother when we talk about, giving up her independence and her freedom and her privacy, right? With her daughter, seeing her in a certain state. I mentioned independence, privacy, and just your dignity in general, right? It's one thing to have your daughter or your son showering and bathing you, and it may be out of love, but a lot of times folks don't want to put their child in that situation. So when we talk about long-term care, now we get to the insurance side where we give ourselves options to say, let me make sure that my child or my caregiver or myself, right, that I'm the overseer of the care and not the provider of the care. So there's a big difference.
Okay, let's roll that into the next question then, which is, who are the primary caregivers? Okay. So we can balance that out.
So the primary caregivers are usually children and usually the women, okay? That doesn't mean that men don't have concerns about their parents. They're usually just not the caregiver. Just like you and I, Herman, we talked a few weeks ago, and we talked about sometimes the concern when it comes to convincing our husband to move abroad is more so, what about mom and dad back home, right? So I don't want to dismiss that men don't care about caregiving. It just usually happens to be women, because women are nurturers, right? And women, that's what we do instinctively, right? So women are 70% of the caregivers. And so it's usually women. So this falls all into the wage gap and everything. They're the ones who usually are taking time off from work to care for their loved ones. And it just has such an effect on women. So women and children are primary caregivers, and also wives. So usually women live longer than men. And so usually men end up needing care for an extended period of time. And then the husband passes, and then the wife lives for another 10 to 15 years afterwards. And then they need care. And it's usually their child, their female child that is the caregiver.
Wow. Yeah, I have seen this In my own family, my mother is one of 10 children. Let's see, about 7 of the children lived local.
Mm-hmm.
But my mother, who is the oldest daughter, wound up being my grandmother's primary caregiver, even though she was once they put her in a facility, they chose a facility near my mother's house. But my mother was there. If 7 days in a week, she was probably there 6 to 7 days out of the week.
Mm-hmm.
Because when your family member is in a long-term care facility, that doesn't mean that you can now take your hands back. You have to be very engaged in their care to monitor the quality of care.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do you manage that in the Move Abroad process? How do you talk to family members to say, this is going to be our plan if our parent needs support? I have a responsibility as a child who respects and loves my mother and my father-in-law to say we will be active even though we may not physically be there. It may be that we are bringing up the long-term care conversation, that we are setting up a plan, we're doing reviews of possible facilities. We are making sure that our parents have a passport so that, like Kim J is saying in the chat,
Mm-hmm.
they may need to come and get care where I am. And I have investigated what the opportunities are where I am so that I can bring my parent so that a care can be affordable. So, I mean, I don't think that most of us are just going, I'm leaving, but you've got that, deciding and understanding the primary caregiver's role is important.
Right. So, my mother, I had this conversation with her back in 2014. And so the conversation obviously ended with her getting long-term care insurance. But the biggest thing that, she tells me that a lot of my clients tell me is, I didn't raise my kids and put them through school and support them in this fashion just so they can turn around and have to quit their job or not live out their dreams to care for me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the biggest thing about having that conversation is, why did you raise your children? Was it to care for you and spend all of their time and their money to care for you? Or, would it be a good idea to have the conversation and anticipate this when it comes to long-term care insurance? Again, making sure your children are the overseers of your care. And Kim, I wanted to address this comment about, you have a couple comments about leaving the United States and,
yes,
expatriation, I love to think it's just us, right? Black people, but it's a lot of people in the United States. And so with that in mind, a lot of insurance companies in regards to long-term care have made benefits available for care outside the United States, Canada, and the UK. Wow. Outside of those countries, because those are the main countries that have, these type of insurance plans.
Mm-hmm.
And so some of the top carriers in long-term care have actually made provisions for care outside the United States. Also, I think they realize that we can get better care outside of the United States and we can get less expensive care outside of the United States. I mean, I can remember going to Mexico last summer on my sabbatical, and I remember going to the ER because I drank some ice. I was a rookie mistake. But they filled up the ice, put ice in the drink just as I got it. But anyway, so I was just overcome with emotion by the care that I got as soon as I walked in the door. As soon as I walked in, before I could sit down, they had the temperature check on my finger. They're asking me before they even asked me my name, they were, running checks on me as soon as I got in there. So, insurance companies know that we can get better care outside the United States. And if you're an insurance company, wouldn't you want to pay half on the dollar than the full dollar, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you're sending checks for claims, so they recognize that need as well.
So let me ask an addendum question here. When is a good time to begin to have the conversation as a family about long-term care, and when is a good time. I guess part B is, when is a good time to prepare for that? And the reason I'm asking that question, when I was 16, so we're talking 10th, 11th grade, my father sat down with me and said, this is what the future looks like. This is what my will looks like. This is what your mother's will looks like.
This is where it is.
This is where it is. Do not put your mother in, if I pass away and your mother becomes ill, do not put her in the nursing home. Use this to pay for in-home care. From when I was 16. And I think, again, even in that plan, some things changed over time with finances and opportunity, things like that. But he was planning from that, from the time I was young. And I know he had, he expressed to me their funeralization processes. I mean, everything from the time I was a teenager. We tend to avoid the morbid conversation, the uncomfortable conversation. We avoid that. We avoid the death conversations. We avoid the sex conversations. We avoid as if they're not going to happen.
Yes.
It's going to happen. So when is a good time to have that conversation as a family, based on your opinion, and possibly how do you go about that?
Okay, so let's talk about statistics really quick, because we mentioned the morbid conversation as far as dying. So that's when we bring up life insurance. And I always tell my clients, listen, life insurance is the only insurance that you're for sure going to use. We are all going to die. So we need to have these conversations. But when we talk about the statistics of needing care, our chances are 70%. When we talk about, filing our homeowner's claim, those statistics, those chances of filing a homeowner's claim are 6.5%. And our chances of filing an automobile claim are 3.7%. Our house and our car, those are just things, right? When we talk about the 70% chance of needing long-term care, we're literally talking about our body and ourselves. So when should we have the conversation? Nikki hit the nail on the head with 50 and I have long-term care insurance in place for myself. You need to start to have the conversation before you need the care, right? You need to start to have the conversation while everyone's mental capacity is full, right? And, they're all uncomfortable conversations, but I know for me, I'm happy that I had the conversation with my parents, right? And so when we talk about long-term care insurance, you have to apply and get it before you need the care. It's kind of like you can't get in a car accident and then call Geico, right?
Oh yeah.
So you need to have the conversation with family members while everyone's mental and physical capacity is full, and you need to have the conversation and look into long-term care insurance before you need it. Okay, so long-term care insurance is very, very hard to get. We used to be able to get long-term care insurance very easily through our employer, but now our employers don't offer long-term care insurance. They may offer long-term disability and some other things, but they don't offer actual long-term care insurance where you can get care in a facility at home or an adult daycare facility, right? So we need to have the conversations before we need help physically, before we need, to put the ramp in our house, right? Before we need help getting, taking our medications. Before, it's funny, there's a commercial on television right now that talks about Alzheimer's, and it's family members bringing up, what happened when mom got her Alzheimer's diagnosis. And all I can think of in my head every time I see that commercial is, oh man, I hope they got long-term care for mom.
Yes.
Because people with Alzheimer's and dementia, they usually live a very, very, very long time. Those are the ones who end up needing care for 15 years. Right? And the people who need it for a year or less, you had severe diabetes and you had a stroke, right? And now your health is declining and your whole left side, you can't use it. And so now you need help, taking your medications or bathing, getting in and out of the bed and the chair. But you need to have, you need to have the conversations and apply for long-term care insurance before you need the care, because your chances are needing it are 70%. And let's talk reason why the chances are so high of us needing. Can I talk about that really quick?
Yeah.
Okay. Medical technology and research. right? Advancements in medical technology and research has allowed us to live longer these days. We're living a lot longer, so now we need more care, right? A lot of people think that Medicare is going to pay for their care. And I know we'll talk about Medicare more. I got the Medicare and You book. But if you go to page 55 and 56 in the Medicare and You book, some of y'all may get this mailed to your house. You can also go to Medicare.gov and bring it up. But this year on page 55 and 56, Medicare is making it very clear that they do not cover long-term care. Now, people get confused with Medicare and Medicaid. They're two different things, and we'll talk about the differences. But Medicare does not cover long-term care. Medicare will cover up to 100 days of skilled nursing care, but not custodial care. So let's talk about the differences. Skilled nursing care is when the doctor thinks that you will get better, you will get well, right? The care that you are giving is to make you better. Whereas long-term care is custodial care, meaning that that's the situation that you're in. You need help with your activities of daily living. So Medicare will cover 100 days of skilled nursing care, but they will cover no custodial care, and that's what long-term care is. So people are living a lot longer due to advanced technology and research is why we need to talk about long-term care insurance. Medicare doesn't cover long-term care insurance. And so we really leave ourselves susceptible to the state dictating when and how, we get care.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I brought up this question by Professor LCH about, when is it too late, but also when is it too late to get insurance coverage for elderly people? Because I'm realizing that, I'm guessing that if you get it younger, it's less expensive. If you get it when you're older, that there's an additional cost to that.
Correct. So when is it too late to get coverage? When you need the care, right? Once you already need the care, once you're already diagnosed with Alzheimer's or dementia, once you already need, certified by a doctor that you need, help with your activities of daily living, again, eating, bathing, dressing, toileting, transferring, continence, taking medication, that's when it's too late to get the coverage. The good thing about when is it too late to get insurance? Elderly, I'm not sure, elderly can be a range of ages, but, elderly folks can still qualify for care depending on what's in their medical history. Now, if they are needing assistance already, then it's too late to qualify for coverage. But the good thing, long-term care is very hard to get, okay? And it takes quite a bit of time. There's a process to it. But you need to look into it while you're young, before you need the care. I can't emphasize that enough. Now, the good thing about the insurance companies is they have traditional long-term care insurance, but they also have plans called short-term care insurance, where it's a lot easier to get. You just answer those basic medical questions. There's no face-to-face visit to your house and physical exam and request from the doctor for your medical information. So insurance companies have put some things in place to help folks who want to make sure that they have some coverage and that they can transfer some of their risk. Because we have to remember, insurance is just a transfer of risk. That's all it is, right? We have a risk. We have a vehicle and we risk it getting stolen or ruined or wrecked. And so we want to transfer that risk onto Geico. So we'll say, if something happens to my car, Geico will handle it, right? When we pass on, we have a risk of accrued medical bills, the cost of burial, the cost of our cremation, maybe we leave behind, maybe there's loss of income. And so that's a risk that we put on our family. So when we get life insurance, we want to transfer that risk onto the insurance company. We want to put it on them. So the same with long-term care. When we need care for an extended period of time, we put our family members at risk, our loved ones at risk, the people who are going to care for us. We risk those people having to change their jobs, take a leave of absence, or stop work, or not travel internationally as they want to, right? Then we risk our assets. We risk everything we've built up, our IRA, our 401k, right? Because the state's not going to pay for your care when you've got $100,000 in your IRA, okay? Believe that, okay? So we also risk losing our homes, right? This is another thing that Black folks, we really got to pay attention to. This is how a lot of homes are lost, right? Before we get into the trusts and wills and all those things, it's long-term care insurance. So when we know that, we have a history of heart disease or osteoporosis, severe arthritis, or Alzheimer's or dementia of our family, we know that's a risk that we have. We want to take that risk and transfer it on to the insurance company. That's what insurance is a transfer of risk, right? We have a house and we know that, we live in Florida and the storm's going to come through. We know that's a risk that we have. We know it. But that's why we have homeowners insurance. So we take that risk of that roof and transfer it to the insurance company.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Well, I want to make sure in this conversation that this is usually directed at an older population. So I'm going to say 50 and over, 65 and older. I was watching an NPR spot investigation that they were doing, seeing that spinal cord injury, younger people are needing that custodial care. And so they've still got a long life expectancy, but they want an improved quality of life. They want a quality of life that they're used to. And so I don't want to just focus this on, taking care of our parents or even me taking care of my spouse, that we've got 23, 21 and an 18-year-old. If our 18-year-old is in a car accident and loses is paralyzed, we are going to need to care for, we need long-term care insurance for our younger, or have considered the long-term care needs of our children as well.
Yes, so 40% of people who need care are under the age of 65. Now, I know we're talking about 20 and 30-year-olds. It's funny because I don't know if she's watching. I'm not going to say your name, but I just helped the person. I just helped the lady. Don't say your name either if you're watching. I just helped the lady with the long-term care policy for herself, but she literally told me that, her son is receiving care, and the person who's giving him the care is his father, right? He was in a really bad car accident, broke his leg in several different parts of the leg. And, when you have a broken leg and it goes all the way up towards your hip, you really can't do much. I mean, you can eat, but you really can't get up to get your food, right? You maybe can take your medications, but just when you need help with two of those activities of daily living, you need care. And so, as young people too, we have access to more things and we take more risks. And so it's funny because the risk for young people needing care is just as high as it is for people above age 65. Cool. It's even more higher because we have not spent a lifetime accumulating assets. When we're in our late 30s, early 40s, our parents are in their late 60s, early 70s, right? So they physically cannot, do what we can do, lift us up. Lift us out of the bath, lift us out of the chair, off of the couch to get showered, to get bathed, to help us change our clothes, right? So, and oftentimes our parents are the ones who need care as well. So, and then if you're my age and you're late 30s, you have to think about your spouse too. What happens if I need care? What now happens with my spouse? Is he supposed to quit his job to care for me? That care. So, no, it's certainly a conversation that we have to have because it's not just about being elderly or frail. We have to think about being sick or injured.
Yeah, I'm really glad. Thank you guys so much for the comments in the chat. Please keep them coming because we're going to move into. Already did that.
No, that cost.
Oh, okay, there. Oh, there we go. Okay. Did you want to talk a little bit more about the cost of long-term care? I know you kind of gave us, gave us that quick overview. Because look, my eyes did this when you said 100,000 a year.
Yeah, and I'm on the low end, right? These numbers are from Longtermcare.gov, all right? And they need to update these numbers because if anyone's out there, Professor LCH, Kim, Jay, who else, Nikki, if you all have experience with care for an extended period of time, you know that it costs a lot of money. So according to Longtermcare.gov right now, okay, care in a semi-private room at a nursing home. So semi-private meaning you may have a room, there may be someone else in the room with a curtain, right? That can cost $225 a day, or close to $7,000 a month. And that's in a semi-private room.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
When we talk about a private room in a nursing home, we're up to about $253 a day, or close to $7,700 per month of care. Where is the comment that the cost was? Kim J says, my mom was in an acute care facility now. Medicare paid for 2 months, right? The cost was $10,000 per month until we hired an attorney. After several months, Medicare paid $6,000, leaving $4,000 a month on my mom, right? So now the cost in an assisted living facility, okay, again, that's where you have, it could be a house with 4 bedrooms, and the house manager stays in one room, and then the patients stay in the other room. That's about $120 a day, or about $3,700 per month in an assisted living facility. And then, for a home aide, it's about $21 an hour and $20 an hour for homemaker services. And care in an adult daycare facility can be about $68 per day, just to send your parent or your loved one there during the day, right? While you can go to work and live your life and come back and get them, just like child daycare, right? And so, again, according to Longtermcare.gov, care can cost upwards of $100,000 a year. So that's the cost financially as far as dollars go. But again, the cost of care on our family dynamic is significant, right? We mentioned a couple times the changes that the caregiver has to make, oftentimes children, that children have to make, the effects it has on them emotionally. I had time when my mother had open heart surgery. This is like 12 or 13 years ago now. And there were some things that I saw that just had an effect on me, right? And when I brought it up to my sister, right, who wasn't around, who did not come back home to see about mom, because I did, she told me to get over it. And I'm like, okay, clearly this had an effect on me. And you have no idea what it feels like. So we talk about the cost, we talk about the effect that it has on children. We also talk about the effects that it has on the person receiving the care, right? Because 95% of parents want the best for their children. And in their mind, the best doesn't include you quitting work to care for them, to wipe their butt. This is direct as I can say. When we get further into the cost of care, we get into, so what happens when you're not fortunate like Kim, right? Your mother doesn't have $4,000 a month to pay for care, right? So let's just say you have $4,000 a month to pay for care, but you only have that for, 10 months, right? Yeah, and so the money has now run out. So now we think about, okay, well, how can we continue to get this care, and who's going to pay for this care? All right. So we've spent our Social Security check. We've spent our assets, right? The assets that we intended to pass on to our children. So now we get into generational wealth, which is a whole nother situation that us Black folks, we're missing the boat on when it comes to generational wealth. Now we get into your home, right? Your state, the state that you live in, is not going to pay for care when you have assets. They're going to take those assets first, those assets to help pay for your care. And this gets into some things with the state, and I'm sure we'll get into long-term care partnership programs, federal and state level. But the cost of care is significant when we talk about leaving a legacy, when we talk about our independence, when we talk about our privacy. The cost of care is more than dollars.
It's the impact on your life. It is the impact on your life. So Yeah, so we put up Kim J's comment. Even $300 $300 a month. That's, when you're thinking about years, or even 1 year. What our family found out was that when you need care is not when you start taking actions to reduce your family members' assets. I think you shared with us, Candace, how it used to be. I think it used to be 5 years.
It's still 5 years for most states. For most states, it's 5 years. So, folks who are watching, we're talking about the Medicaid look back period or spin down program. So, when you need care for an extended period of time and you're out of assets, Medicaid now, we're talking about Medicaid, which is basically healthcare for low income individuals. Now, Medicaid will put you through the spin down program, meaning you need to spin down all of your assets until you get to $2,000. Additionally, when we talk about the look back period, Medicaid's going to look into how long ago you transferred your house, right? So if my mom has a house and she ends up needing care, well, the state's going to look to take that house, right? If my mom transferred the house to me, sorry, that's my dryer. If my mom transferred the house to me 3 years ago, the state's going to look at that as, well, mom still owns the house. But if I go 5 years or more, then I'm out of the look back program, and now the house isn't at risk for the state to take it. So when we talk about titles and things like that, and parents getting older, we really need to consider transferring assets long before we anticipate our family needing care. And I wanted to address Kim's comment with the $300 a month. She's talking about a premium for long-term care insurance plan. And yes, there are premiums that are very expensive, but then there are premiums where if you build the plan correctly and abide by some of the partnership rules and things like that, where the plan can be a lot less expensive to make sure. And, again, it's more important to have the plan pay for more amount of money per day than it is to pay for care for a long time. Because if the plan doesn't pay for enough money per day, then the length of how much the coverage is doesn't really matter.
Right.
If you can't afford to pay for care. So yeah, a lot of people see those $300 a month coverages and then they don't act. But I just wrote a plan for someone, $100-something a month. She's a little on the older side than what you would want to get a plan. So, insurance companies also have made changes and provisions to how they offer this type of care too, and more options, because the baby boomers are booming now, right?
They're booming.
And so the federal government wants insurance companies to be more lenient and put more things into place to offer this kind of care. They're even starting to get back to group coverages for federal employees. I mean, the federal government is doing everything in their power to tell America, to tell you all, do something, because we are not going to pay for your care. We will take your assets to pay for your care.
Right. And then I think part of what my family did, my father did, was trust. Move things into trust and protected by wills, and trying to protect some of those assets from various angles. So yeah, I get it. So what are the options, and what is long-term care insurance?
Okay, so long-term care insurance. So your options are, so option one, when it comes to paying for this care, is you can self-insure. Self-insure means that you spend your own assets, including your home, at a rate of $50,000 to $100,000 a year to pay for this care, right? And now the generational wealth that you plan to pass on to your children is non-existent, right? They're no longer inheriting that house that you were going to leave them, right? And Airbnb it out, right? Like Southside Kim taught us at, Exodus Summit, right?
Yes.
Or Southside Pam, I should say, excuse me.
Pam.
So that's the first option is self-insure. Pay for it yourself. The second option is Medicaid. When you are on Medicaid, it means you relinquish most of your assets. And now the state's going to dictate where you live and who cares for you and how you're taken care of and the quality of your care. So that's when we hear about bad horror stories when it comes to the nursing homes, because they have people in there making $17 an hour supposedly providing care for you, right? Usually you take more pride in your job and your career when you're paid well, right? When you're skilled. And so we really don't want folks making $17 an hour with no experience caring for our parents, right? Like they will in a Medicaid facility. And then option 3 is private insurance, getting a monthly premium that you can budget for and talking with someone who is not going to, when you tell them your budget is $150, they're not going to come to you with a $300 a month plan, right?
Yeah. Right.
And so, at the time of needing care, you really have to think about which consequence you want for yourself and your family. You want to self-insure and spend all your assets. You want to go on Medicaid and have the state dictate, or you want to have private insurance with a premium that you can budget for. Now, when it comes to long-term care insurance, there are several companies out there who offer that coverage. And I'm licensed in, again, over 30 states to talk to people about that type of care. Insurance companies have plans that cover care just in a nursing home, that cover care just at home, that cover a comprehensive amount of care where you can, at that time, you can dictate where you're going to get care. They have plans for 3, 4, and 5 years. But then there are insurance companies who have plans that will cover you for a year, right? Because most people who need care need the care for 1 year or less.
Correct.
The average is 3 years because we have outliers. We have those people with Alzheimer's that need care for 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
People need care for 1 year or less, right? So the insurance company really has put plans in place to give a variety of people from a variety of income levels and backgrounds the opportunity to make sure that they cover care for themselves, right? Because when we talk about insurance plans and insurance rates, insurance, it still has to go through the state Department of Insurance and still has to be regulated by the state. And so the federal government is telling these states do something to help folks cover care for an extended period of time.
I think that's really important. I'm sorry for interrupting. I think that's really important because it's really easy to focus on the long-term care,
Mm-hmm.
to focus on because long interprets as years to come.
Years.
And so a lot of times people are in short long-term care needs and don't know that there are resources that can help cover that short-term need. It's why I asked you earlier about rehabilitation. If somebody's in an extensive rehabilitation period, can they be covered with that? Does that fall into that if it's a rehabilitation need? You mentioned the young man with the broken leg, with the extensive leg injuries. You have a severe car accident that takes.
But you're going to get better. I think that was something that Candace mentioned is there's parts of the insurance that for when you are going to get better. And then there's that custodial care where you're just going to need care with
But I think people miss that because you assume, okay, because I will get better. I have to find a way to cover this myself. I have to find a way to be, but most of our jobs offer us some term of short-term disability,
long-term disability,
which has, I guess, which I guess.
But I'm going to tell you, it is a fight to the death to get that coverage that you are paying for with your job.
Well, there's a couple methods when it comes to that, which we can't talk about all the way on the internet.
Right.
I with my extensive background in insurance, I've been doing this since 2010. There's just a way to go about getting the care that you need when we talk about those short-term disability and long-term disability plans.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about it when it comes to that, when we're talking to this audience here, oftentimes our doctor and our human resources department, they don't care. They don't see in our faces that when we need care, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, there's a couple of specific methods that I like to educate people about, because I've had to take, for my own care, time off of work twice. And sometimes we make a mistake when it comes to trying to get that kind of care. And so that's another thing that I help folks with, just avoiding those pitfalls and just setting ourselves up to get the type of care that we deserve, that we need, and that we're paying for. So if there's anybody out there, I'm going to just say this, who needs that type of care, right? Because Stephanie Perry says, Janet at work, that she's always taking off work, and they talk within their little groups about how they take care off. Well, Candace Coston is here to tell you that it's not that hard, and I can help you take off, help you use those benefits. There's a couple people out there, again, I can't say their names because I always protect people's privacy, but there's a couple women out there in the Exodus Summit community that have needed this care, have qualified for this care, deserve this care, couldn't figure out a way to take this care, and after a conversation or two are having this care. I mean, I helped someone put their employer program into place last summer, and he went and traveled Europe. Now, he got the care he needed, right? Because sometimes the care we need is rest.
Mhm.
Correct.
Mhm.
So yes, but just real quick, let's get back to this short thing about when you said, when we talk about long-term care, we think years out, and so the thing that classifies long-term care is more than 100 days. When you need care for more than 100 days, that's only 3 months and 10 days.
Mm-hmm.
Now, most of our health insurance plans will cover skilled care for 90 days, right? Help us get better for 90 days. Medicare, again, covers 100 days of skilled care. Now, let's talk about Medicare's the coverage of skilled care. They only cover the first 20 days fully. Days 21 through 100, there's a deductible per day. And if you don't have a Medicare supplement plan in place to cover that, then you're on the hook for those days as well. So I didn't mention that. But again, everybody, if you don't have a Medicare and You booklet, go to the Medicare website. And it talks extensively about what they cover. And on pages 55 and 56, they tell you, listen, we don't cover long-term care. Here's some options to pay for it. You could be eligible for Medicaid. Go to Longtermcare.gov, look it up. But we don't cover long-term care. And just, a friendly plug here, you can also go to my website and schedule a consultation to talk about it.
And it's,
That's right.
And it's in the description.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Another part of this that Nikki has mentioned, that a lot of us that are considering moving abroad, is I know the cost of care is going to be less expensive outside of the country. But I have seen some people get into some high cost as well, as far as the cumulative cost of needing care, even outside of the US. So as we're having this long-term care conversation, I like the fact that Candace understands the move abroad mindset when she is giving the consultation, but also helping us to consider what long-term care, if I have a policy that I'm buying here in the US where we're based, are there opportunities for us to use that outside the country?
Yes. So did we tell the people how we met each other when we talk about the move abroad mindset? Did we tell the people?
We did not.
They met each other because of me.
Oh. Well, there is that connection piece, but the Exodus Summit community is a broad group of women, Black women specifically. And we jumped on the opportunity to meet in person during the Exodus Summit meetup in Marrakesh. So if you want to give a little slice into that.
So obviously, Danica, you and I are in the Exodus Summit community, and we took the opportunity to go to Marrakesh. Sometimes the Exodus Summit meetups are for scouting trips to see if there's somewhere where we want to live. I've gone to both of the Exodus Summit meetups. Last year to scout Cancun, this year to scout Marrakesh, Morocco. And so I watch you guys' channel, and it's breakfast time, and we're at the breakfast buffet. And I'm like, I see Herman. I'm like, wait a second, I know you. You're the H from H&D Abroad. And he was like, yeah. And that was very brief. But then I was out at the pool eating breakfast, and you guys were, I think, looking for one of the events, and Herman sat down really quick. And I'm not sure who brought it up, but we talked about needing care. And I said, oh, I specialize in long-term care. And it just kind of spiraled from there. But I just wanted to bring that up just so everybody understands, like, I'm a traveler and moving abroad is top of mind for me. And, you know, just like a lot of women too, but a lot of men, you know, think about what's going to happen with mom or dad, right? When I need care, or what's going to happen with me when I need care. So I took a moment about a year or two ago to do a little research to say what insurance companies that offer long-term care insurance are offering it internationally. And I found out quite a few. And it's mainly the larger insurance companies that offer it, and some of the really, really good ones, because again, they realize that, listen, if I can write $100,000 check for someone to get subpar care in the United States, or a $75,000 check for someone to get great care outside the country, we'll do that. And so literally they offer international coverage, and they consider that outside of the United States, outside of Canada, and outside of the UK. So in the UK, wouldn't even be considered international coverage. That's the UK. Now, let's not get that confused with Europe, right? We don't want to get that confused with France, right? France would be outside of outside international coverage. But there are companies who offer this type of coverage, international coverage, for folks who are planning to move abroad.
Did not know that. I would not have known that.
Like, that just
not it either, unless it was something that
gave me a lot of relief. But also, folk, if we are having this plan, we need to be talking to family members so that everybody's on the same page. That mama, daddy, brother, sister, child, they have passports that are unexpired. These are, you know, we're talking about the long-term care, you know, as a central piece, but there are lots of pieces around this that will make these opportunities possible with support and without struggle. So, you know, I want to make sure that I'm so glad that you have identified yourself as someone who understands this population and why we're motivated to live this lifestyle.
Now, there's a couple other benefits that some of the traditional long-term care plans offer folks that it could be, you know, that we don't think about. A lot of long-term care plans offer home modifications. So that means, you know, putting a ramp out front, right? Or putting a chair lift inside, home modifications. A lot of plans offer home equipment, right? So if you need breathing machines or things that you can rent, they offer that. A lot of plans offer respite care. So this is one thing that I really like. Respite care basically means that the person who's caring for you gets a break. So yes. So let's just say I am caring for mom or dad, and I'm doing some of the care, but I'm leveraging my care with, you know, the long-term care insurance. So I don't make the long-term care insurance pay for all of the care. I do some of the care. But right now I need a bit of a break. I want to go spend the summer in Cancun, or I want to go spend a month in Cancun. Now we can go put mom or dad in a facility for a month, right? And that's respite care. But some of you are thinking, well, what if I want mom and dad to come with me? Plans offer bed reservation for up to 30 days as well. So maybe mom or dad can't be gone and in Cancun or in Jamaica or in Ghana for 2 years. But what I can do, you know, because I love my mom, is give her a bit of, you know, a time off, right? So, or time away. So if mom is in a facility and she has a bed, oftentimes we want to come back to where we're comfortable and where we're familiar, right? Just like when I got home from Morocco and laid in my bed, I just screamed like, yes. So these plans offer bed reservation so that when you leave, let's say you take mom to Cancun, mom can come back to the same bed that she was in. So they will reserve your bed. And so you're not going to, you know, because facilities fill up very quickly. So now you don't want to risk having a facility right down the street. You and mom go to Cancun and you come back, and now the facility that she's in is 2 hours down the road, but it's in the same state. So, you know, so there's more benefits in place than we can even think of when it comes to getting care outside the United States.
Wow.
I did not know that.
Wow.
And that's really interesting because in our area, just general living is growing. So apartments, homes, everywhere. But on top of that, there also are a lot of senior living and assisted living facilities going up.
Aren't there?
A lot of them.
Like
I have to wait to see if it's an apartment building or a senior living facility.
There's a reason for that.
Because they are popping up a lot. That's great. And matter of fact, there are whole communities here in this city that are senior homes.
So they go from I live independent, but might need someone to check on me, and I might need longer term care. I'm on the same campus. I'm near, access, but I know those have got to cost because they hire chefs to do their food prep. So I know it's got to be expensive.
I have applied as a chef to several of those facilities, and they pay very well because they do fine dining.
Yes.
Right. So, there's two things I want to mention, and I'm going to write a little note so I don't forget. When we talk about leaving the United States, and, some of us in the Exodus Summit community have attended some of the virtual summits, and we talk about, leveraging real estate and leveraging property to pay for care. And we talk about renting, right? And we talk about Airbnb. But one thing I want to share with the audience, and it was the first thing that popped into my mind when it comes to renting your 3-bedroom house. My thought was, what about turning it into an adult day or assisted living facility and getting $4,000 a month per room?
Explosion just happened in my brain.
You just gave us an option.
Because we just had on this channel, what are we going to do with our home?
And we've been battling.
And we actually have a family member who runs a at-home 24-hour care, but never thought that our house could be the facility.
Yeah. And you're getting $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month per room. My cousin does that. He quit his job at Highmark or UPMC. That's our medical system here. I live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, University of Pittsburgh Medical Center. He quit his job there. He bought a house a couple years ago, and he built it and he turned it in. He's now providing care. And so a lot of the people are young people. A lot of them are young people with mental incapacities, but he's bringing in like $18,000-$19,000 a month because he turned his house into an assisted living facility. So I wanted to bring that up, is just the mindset that I want people to have when we talk about property, right? But we don't have property if we don't have some sort of plan in place so the state doesn't take our home, right?
Right.
The other thing I wanted to bring up, because Herman, you brought up, being a chef at that place that pays well. So there's another type of program there's facilities and campuses called CCRCs.
Mm-hmm.
And so those communities are, so CCRCs, essentially how it works is you can get a very level of care. You can go into those facilities and you just need minimal care. You need someone to check on you every couple of days, right? All the way up to needing 24-hour around the clock. You're in a vegetable state and you need someone to feed you, give you your medications, bathe you. So everything in between, right? The thing about CCRCs though, is usually it comes with, you put a down payment of $300,000 and then you pay a monthly payment of $2,000 or $3,000, right? And now you're there no matter what, if your money runs out, but you're there, but you've put in $200,000-$300,000 to be there and you pay a monthly premium. But all different levels of care. And so oftentimes what attracts people to that is those wanting to always, always, always be with their spouse.
Mm-hmm.
Because what you don't want to happen is you need care and you're in a facility and then your husband ends up needing care but he's getting care from somewhere else 2 hours down the road. Not only is that have an effect on you all, right, being married all these years, but it has an effect on your children and your loved ones who are going to care for you and come visit you, right? So yes, CCRCs, those ones that are paying that nice dollar that you, not because they're paying you well, but just what you described, where you can get continued levels of care. Those are called CCRCs, continuing care retirement communities, I want to say is the acronym.
Wow.
But essentially you put down a down payment of several $100,000, and then you pay a monthly, right? Or usually they'll just take it from your Social Security or your pension, and you can stay there for the rest of your life, no matter how much care you need. But again, you're still spending your assets. You're still spending your money. And some people are okay with that.
Yeah. I mean, as we get deeper in understanding, I recognize the need for a guide, because the landscape and the opportunities are vast, and it's almost, it's what you know and who you know that help you to see what those opportunities are. So we've got 2 more sections I want to make sure that we cover. Please keep your questions coming, your comments coming. Thank you so much for for what's in the chat. So you've talked about, so we want to talk about Medicare and the partnership program.
Yeah, so I touched on it already, but I just want to touch on it again. A lot of times folks think Medicare is going to pay for their care. They're not, okay? Back in 1983, Medicare introduced what's called the diagnostic related groups. What that means is when you're on Medicare, so Medicare is for folks, is the primary health care. Medicare is the primary health care for folks over age 65, for folks under age 65 with a disability, or those with end-stage renal disease. Generally speaking, Medicare is for folks over age 65. Okay, that's not Medicaid. Medicaid is a low income. It's essentially your welfare for your health care. Okay, now Medicare, again, here's the Medicare and You book. There's a new one every single year. This year, for the 2023 book, on page 57, starts on 55, what's not covered by Medicare, but on page 57, Medicare is very clear in telling you that they do not pay for long-term care, and here are your resources. You can also go to Medicare.gov and download the book, okay, and have it on your computer to see that. But Medicare talks about several things that they don't cover, but they make sure they mention long-term care. And again, Medicare will cover 100 days of skilled care, right? And that's when you're getting better. But long-term care is custodial care, when you need help with your activities of daily living. And now Medicare only covers the first 20 days in full. And I think someone kind of alluded to this in the comments. Cover the first 20 days in full, and then days 21 through 100, they'll cover a portion of it. And then the rest of it is on you, or if you have a Medicare supplement that supplements that cost. Right. So make sure people understood that Medicare does not cover long-term care. They used to, but it's just not as vast as what our grandparents experienced in regards to Medicare. It used to cover more, but it just doesn't, right?
Right. More people.
And now the partnership program. So the partnership program was put into place back in, I want to say 2005, and not every state has a partnership program. Essentially what the partnership program means is that if, let's say you get long-term care insurance, and you're in a state that has the partnership program. Let's say you get long-term care insurance, and the long-term care insurance that you have in place covers $200,000 of care. What the partnership program says is that if you end up using your long-term care insurance and you use all of the benefit of the insurance, so you use $200,000 worth of care, you're at $200,000 of your assets, your personal assets, will now also be protected. So if you end up needing Medicaid, you can still keep that same equal amount of assets in protection.
Wow.
So the states and the federal government is incentivizing you to get long-term care, especially if you're in a state that has a partnership program like Pennsylvania, which is the state that I'm in.
Okay, so how do we go to the Medicare website to find out if our state is part of the partnership program?
You can go to Longtermcare.gov. I mean, you can Google long-term care partnership programs. You can go to Longtermcare.gov. Again, not every state is a part of the partnership program, but let me see here.
Yeah, because that's Medicare.gov and Longtermcare.gov are two vast, reliable resource location. So when you're looking for this kind of information, there is no hidden agenda. They're telling you what is. They're not trying to sell you something. It is literally the coverage. It is updated. You're going to get the most up-to-date information for what is covered at the federal level. Do either of these websites also cover what's at the state level, or how do we find out what's at the state level?
Most likely going to your state's insurance website. But let me tell you, I just Googled it. So most states offer long-term care partnership. I know off the top of my head, DC does not. I mean, if that's a state, but DC does not. Some of you all live in DC. Mm-hmm. Alaska, DC, Illinois is pending. They've applied to be a part of it. California, Massachusetts wants to be a part of it. Michigan, New Mexico, Utah, and Vermont. Now, based on our audience, ain't many of us up in Utah, Vermont, Alaska. I mean, some of us are there, but
I was about to say some of us are there.
Some of us are there, right? Hawaii is pending to get in the program. Illinois is trying to get into the program, right?
No, California usually provides excellent care, and they don't necessarily need to fall within it. So just my experience.
California is not. They're not even trying to be in the program. They're not. Yeah, most of these things are Googleable. Also, like I said, I offer consultation on, what type of care, what type of coverage is best for you. I'm able to look through, multiple top-rated carriers within your state to see what the best care is for you. What you're trying, get a good understanding of what you're trying to protect and base it off of your needs and your desires and your budget. So yeah, the federal government has put many things in place, many federal acts in place, right? Or within certain federal acts that we've heard of that, are trying to get the word out to people that we don't cover long-term care. I see you, Nikki. I see you. Wait, does Nikki have long-term care? Yes, she does.
Yes.
Yeah, she's 50 and she has coverage in place. Hopefully you have some inflation protection on that coverage that you have.
And that's a whole other conversation.
Some long-term care programs offer like inflation protection. So they'll put like a simple or compound inflation onto your benefit. It costs you a little bit more money, right? But if care costs, $3,000 a month today, it could cost $3,500 a month in 20 years. Mm-hmm. So when we have inflation protection on there, our plan really grows. The benefit that it will pay out grows with inflation as well. Nikki says she's in Illinois. Yeah, Illinois.
Yeah.
Illinois has a pending. It's pending in Illinois. Okay, Nikki?
Yeah. This, I think, is the start of a really good conversation about, the part where we're talking about building generational wealth, that is protecting the assets that you have, adding things that transfer the risk, and just thinking about the importance of taking care of yourself so that you have a high quality of life for as long as you can, but that really moving abroad isn't a risk as risky as we thought.
Nope.
So I know we're moving to countries that have good healthcare systems, but that there are products and services that you can take with you that help you care for the people that you love and for yourself. And I'm so glad that a chance conversation in Marrakesh, Morocco, brought two channels together for this collaboration. If there are other topics, y'all, that we want to discuss, that you want to discuss in the long-term care arena, please put those in the chat. If you are joining us by watching, please put #replay, because I know if you're not paying attention to this, you definitely should. It is very quick, as Candace described, to go from having $500,000 to having very little to show for it, for your parents or for you, because you are having to use those assets to provide care to someone that you love, that you want to be comfortable and safe, and that you can do that in collaboration with the desire to move abroad. Candace, tell us how we can work with you and where we can find you, because all that information is also in the description.
You can go to my website, CostonInsurance.com, COSTON insurance.com. I'm in the process of updating it, y'all, so bear with me. It says I'm licensed in 3 states, but since I've created the website, it's 30 more states. But you can go there and schedule a consultation. You can find me on LinkedIn. There you go. You can email me at candace.coston@gmail.com. That's CANDACE.COSTON@gmail.com. But the best thing is to go to CostonInsurance.com, take a look at my website. You'll see my picture on there, snoop around a little bit, and schedule a consultation with me to go over your rights and entitlements in regards to long-term care. Like Kim, for example, one thing I would tell you is that you can move to Mexico. There are long-term care plans available here in the United States that offer international coverage. So you would get a care plan with one of the top carriers here in the United States that offers it in the state that you reside in. And then you'd be able to take it to Mexico. I mean, insurance companies would love to cover the cost of care at 20% of the cost in Mexico than it would be in the United States. And the money goes a lot further, as everyone who's been to Mexico knows that our money goes further. So you can go to CostonInsurance.com and get in contact with me.
Thank you so much. Thank you for everyone that's been in the chat, providing comments, questions. Y'all, this is so important, and we're glad to have you, Candace, come.
We will be having this conversation again.
And we will be contacting
you.
Because, I mean, you just open up a whole new, the assisted care in home, that might be a path with your house. Maybe just boom.
Yes, you just added a whole new pot to the stove, girl.
Yeah.
We really appreciate you. Thank you for taking the moment to stop and talk with me in Marrakesh. She's like, I don't know this dude, but he's talking to me. So thank you for thank you for agreeing to considering doing this. Candace is moving towards her channel.
Yeah.
Y'all keep an eye on it.
She has a channel.
You got a channel?
Yeah, I have a channel. Candace Coston. It's you gotta have to fish. I've got one video up there, but I'm gonna be creating more videos. But it's Candace Coston.
So y'all subscribe to Candace so she can get on the move. We believe in you. We support you.
Absolutely.
And we will be in touch real soon.
Thank you both so much for inviting me on here and encouraging me and let me know it's okay if you only have one video up, because this is something that I've been talking to folks about since 2010. Literally, that's 13 years, right? It's just that technology has moved us in a way where we can get the word out to more people. And I really appreciate you all giving me the platform to come onto your YouTube channel and talk to you all. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, in the comments for being nice and asking good questions. And yes, I would definitely be open-minded and love to come back to talk more about the intricacies of long-term care.
We will do.
Absolutely. Have a
Thank
great
you,
rest of the day.
We're H&D Abroad, and we'll see you soon.
Bye for now.
Bye. Thank you.